Did you know that GitHub helps you find beginner-friendly issues on a repo so you can contribute to open source? Let's take a look. On any repository, type \contribute at the end of the URL in the browser. This will show you a list of beginner-friendly issues that you can work on for that specific project, even if the issue wasn't labeled good first issue. You now have a head start on contributing your first or second PR to open source. Until next time, this has been GitHub Tips and Tricks.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining us. Today is Friday. I don't know about you all, but I had a really long week. So I'm super excited to be here today. Not only because it's Friday for me, but also because I have a super special guest and we're here to celebrate and shine a light on all the amazing maintainers, contributors, open source projects that make our jobs so much easier. My name is Andrea Griffiths. I'm a la Colombia dev everywhere. And it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I would love to know, where are you from? So maybe you can drop in the chat just a quick comment. Where are you joining us from? I always enjoy seeing where the GitHub community is showing up from. Super excited to be here today. On a personal note, I'm joining you from Florida, where it had been really cold, but it finally warmed up. So it's all good. On a second personal note, I have to give a massive shout out to the OG, Adam, the text editor. I found this coffee mug today and had a moment because Adam, the text editor, another open source project, was actually the start of my career. So dear and near, father of Electron and all other amazing things. Anyways, welcome to Open Source Friday. My guest today, if you are a Windows user, or if you are interested in package management, or if you really just want to learn a lot of good stuff, you're in the right place. I'm joined by Gary Ewan Park, who, hello, GitHub Star. Shout out to the GitHub Stars program for recognizing amazing humans like Gary who are doing incredible work for our communities and to keep this fantastic ecosystem going. Gary is also a Microsoft MVP. He's been a developer for over 10 years, started out with VB.NET and ASP.NET. Shout out to all the .NET folks out there, including my boss's boss, my Skip Martin Woodward, ASP.NET Web Forms. And he now spends most of his time coding C#. Hero. He is the maintainer of the Chocolatey, Cake Build, Cake Contrib, and Git Tools GitHub organizations. Regularly, he does live coding streams, sharing all his amazing wealth of knowledge on his Twitch channel. And he is joining us live all the way from Northern Scotland. Very, very late for Gary. So let's bring him in with some energy, and super grateful to be here with you today. Gary, hi.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have I feel like everywhere in the world. Folks are watching right now. We got people coming in from Bangalore, from Ghana, from Australia, from Orange County, from India, from Germany, Kenya, Hampshire, UK, from Jersey. I mean, greetings to everyone. Thank you for being here. So nice to meet you, Gary. I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. I know it's a bit late and it is also Friday. So thanks again.
No, I'm very glad to be here. So thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate it. So I've read your bio, and then obviously I'm familiar with you because even though I'm not a Windows user, it's kind of a big deal. For those of you who are just joining and you're wondering what are we talking about and what's Chocolatey, it sounds delicious, and it is. You know, someone on the chat earlier did like a, what did it say? It's like npm to Windows or something like that, which is actually accurate. But it's, I think, an oversimplification of this incredible ecosystem that you created, the way that it's community driven and all things. But we'll start from the beginning, right? First of all, I want to get to know you a bit. So I'd love to know, what was your first open source contribution? Did you remember? This is like
I do actually. I do.
You?
I mean,
Awesome.
so it was actually to Chocolatey of all things. So back in 2013, I think it was when I first created my GitHub account. I'd heard about this thing over here called Chocolatey, and I thought I want to try and contribute something to it. So I found that it was missing something. So I thought I'm going to give this a try. At the time, I didn't know what PowerShell was, so I thought I'll try. I'll see what happens. Because PowerShell is a fundamental part of what Chocolatey is. So I submitted a PR. My first PR in Chocolatey got rejected and got closed,
no.
but that's fine. I learned a lot, came back, fixed it up, had some good discussions with the maintainers at the time, and yeah, that was my first contribution into I'd say my first proper contribution, because before that I'd made repositories, I'd done commits. I mean, I hadn't really done anything, but yeah, Chocolatey as a project was my first thing that I contributed to. And then I want to say 5 years after that, the founder of Chocolatey, Rob Reynolds, started thinking he was going to offer me a job. So I had to then have serious conversations with my wife to decide whether this was something that I was going to do, i.e., step away from a full-time job in the oil and gas industry up here in Scotland to go and work for some random dude from America that I'd never met in person. So that was an interesting conversation to have. But yeah, I've been doing it for 6 years now. I've been working full-time for Chocolatey from my office here, which is actually part of my garage, but it's been working out really well. So no, happy with it.
I love this. You are my second open source stream of the day. We do a Spanish version earlier, and my guest earlier also got his job because of open source. Like his current job started very similar, saw something, wanted to contribute, and then was noticed. Such a good lesson for everyone out there that's trying to contribute to a project. Don't be discouraged if your pull request gets closed or rejected. It's a learning process, and Gary's first contribution to the thing that he does now was rejected.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in fairness, the reason that it was closed was a good reason, but I learned from it and picked it up, did another PR, and that one, at the time, another community contributor helped me through it, because they then introduced this weird term that I'd never heard about, which was Git rebase, and I had to do a Git rebase and do stuff, and I'm like, I've got no idea what these people are talking about, but I did it anyway, and yeah, it eventually got merged in, so it was good fun. Yeah,
I love that. Hey, special sticker prize to whoever in the audience can put on the chat what Git rebase is. Okay. Real quick, and let me start for folks to understand. But that's awesome. I also put up the repo and GitHub. We're really good at something on Open Source Fridays, and that is really like putting our stars where our mouth is. So let's go to that repo. Let's leave it a star, even if you're not a Windows user. Let's get Chocolatey trending. So this is awesome. You got started, you were noticed, and then you started working full time. And obviously, it's been an interesting journey. You're here today. I want to learn. Let's say I have no idea what the problem is that you fix with Chocolatey. Could you explain to me a bit about that? And for folks who are not PowerShell users, which is some folks in the audience are also commenting about that. Yeah, if you could explain it to us like in super novice terms, that'll be awesome.
I can do that. I mean, is it okay if can I share my screen and maybe?
Oh my gosh, yes, please. That
Yeah,
would be even better. Yes,
so
that's awesome.
If I click here and click here. So hopefully you can see my screen now.
I see it. Beautiful.
Okay, so the example here is, so I'm on a Windows system, obviously, and one of the other tools that I contribute to and work on is a tool called Git Release Manager. So Git Release Manager, I know that Git Release Manager is accessible when it's installed using the shortcut GRM. But at the minute, I don't have Git Release Manager installed. So the question comes, how can I get the Git Release Manager tool installed onto my machine? So there's various ways of doing that. I could go to the GitHub repository, I could download it directly, or I could use what Chocolatey is, which is a package manager for Windows. It allows the installation and maintenance and control of different packages for my Windows machine. So I've got Chocolatey installed on my machine. So Chocolatey is just Choco at the command line. So I can do Choco install git release, if I can type manager. Now, I happen to know that it's called git release manager.portable. That's for reasons that we can go into later. But essentially, git install git release manager portable is going to go off to the Chocolatey community repository. It's going to find that package. It's going to download it and it's going to install it. And because of the way that Chocolatey works under the hood in terms of what it can do, GRM, the tool, is then immediately available. So I can now run GRM from my PowerShell session here, and then I can start to use Git Release Manager to do stuff, and whatever that stuff is. So the example I've used here is to install just that tool, but we've got something like over 10,000 different packages on the Chocolatey community repository. So what we like to say is, if you can't find it on the community repository, you must be using some kind of niche product or niche application that hasn't been, a package hasn't been created for it yet. But then there are ways and means through the Chocolatey community to request a package be added, or you can even take on board the management or maintenance of that package yourself and go in and create the package and push it to the community repository so that other people can make use of it. So the obvious one after that is, well, I've installed it, but I decide I don't want Git Release Manager anymore, so I might want to uninstall it. So it's the exact same command, but you're using the uninstall command rather than the install command, and it will take it out. And then at that point, if I try running GRM again, it's now no longer found because Chocolatey's taken it away. So on my machine, for example, I've got something like 106 packages installed, but I can manage all of those applications through Chocolatey, keeping them up to date and getting them all installed and configuring them the way I want them to. So at a very high level overview, that's what Chocolatey is and what it can be done to help you get your machine up and running the way you want it to.
Very cool. Anyone in the audience who's already using Chocolatey, drop a comment there. I appreciate the fact that you share how to, like, from the get-go, how to install it. This is awesome. So the community contributions that you have, right? Like all these packages are produced by the community. And you said you have over 10,000?
So we have, maybe I can share again, actually. Let's.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Have a look over here. So if I go share screen again, back over here, here.
Yeah, and here we go.
You can share my screen, and then I can go back so I can actually drive, which is over here. So the Chocolatey community repository I referred to there is up at, I can't type, I still can't type, community.chocolatey.org. I'm not on my machine because otherwise this would already be in my favorites, but this is, I spun up a VM just so that I had it standalone.
Thank you.
But yeah, this is the Chocolatey community repository, or what we refer to as the Chocolatey community repository. And on here, if I click through here, we'll see that there are currently 10,030 community maintained packages. So yeah, these packages are created published and then maintained by a set of community volunteers within the Chocolatey community. There's, depending on the package, sometimes the underlying software author is also the maintainer of the Chocolatey package. So, for example, things like if you're in the .NET space and you're using JetBrains Rider or one of the other JetBrains IDEs, those packages, for the most part, or they certainly were, they were maintained by JetBrains themselves. So they create the packages and they publish the packages. So we do sometimes see authors taking ownership of their own packages, but for the most part, the packages are maintained by interested parties within the community, and they keep them up to date.
Got it. Okay, that's awesome. Have you had any packages in there that you've built yourself?
So where I started in Chocolatey was I was a maintainer of various packages. So you will still see my name associated with some packages. So, for example, here my name, my get13 is with the Chocolatey package, but you won't find my name on any other packages, mainly because I wasn't very good at it. I'm not a PowerShell expert, so although it is relatively simple to keep packages up to date, there's still an element of PowerShell in it, and my work colleagues will tell you that I don't get to write PowerShell within the team because I'm, again, not very good at it. So I don't maintain any packages other than the kind of Chocolatey owned packages. My name's still on those because I help maintain those ones, but once upon a time I had maybe 20 to 30 packages that I was maintaining, but I've moved some of those over to another repository that is maintained by a group of individuals that keep them up to date.
Got it. That's awesome. Okay. So there are some questions coming in from the chat, and I want to make sure that I pass them on to you as well, so
Sure.
that there was a question about permissions, and I apologize if I didn't quite capture your name, but if you could explain the way that permissions work in Chocolatey. I think everyone is obviously
sure. I mean, so
always a big concern.
So as you will have maybe noticed that up here in my PowerShell terminal here, I am an administrator. So the way that Chocolatey runs by default is in a secure way. So by that, I mean there's an expectation that it will have you as the installing user will have administrator rights to run Chocolatey. The reason for that is because typically applications that you're installing also need to have administrator permissions because they need to write entries into the registry. They might need to set up services. They might need to do different things on the machine. So Chocolatey by default requires administrator permissions, both for the installation of Chocolatey and then the execution of Chocolatey. The other part of that is that where Chocolatey installs, it installs to a secure location on the file system so that it can't be tampered with. So again, in order to make modifications into that folder structure, you need to have administrator rights to run it. Now, there are ways to run it in a non-elevated way because there are some packages that are what we refer to as portable packages. So they don't actually install anything. They don't write to a registry. They don't change any system settings. They just drop files onto the file system, essentially. So there are ways to run Chocolatey in a non-elevated way, but then you're limited to what packages you would be able to install and manage. So again, by default, we take the path of being secure, and we expect that there's going to be an administrator running that. Now, I don't want this to turn into a commercial selling thing, but there is a commercial version of Chocolatey. And in the commercial version of Chocolatey, there is an ability to run in a non-elevated mode in what we call self-service. So that allows non-administrator users to still manage packages on their machines, but that requires obviously an administrator to set it up and configure it. But then from then on, it can be done in a self-service mode. But actually, I don't want to talk too much about the commercial side because although that's what pays my mortgage, this is not what we're talking about here. But like I say, there are options in that route as well.
Awesome. Thank you. No, and that's thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, that was one of my questions that was coming up because Obviously, yeah, it offers an open source version that's amazing for like individual small teams, but maybe larger organizations have bigger needs, more flexibility for permissions, and I guess that's what the Chocolatey. I don't know what the enterprise offering is called. I apologize. Maybe that's what the Chocolate Business or Enterprise
So
Edition. That's what it brings.
yeah, there's various components to it, but yeah, Chocolate license, Chocolate commercial, Chocolate for business, they all essentially mean the same thing. Yeah.
Beautiful. General idea, we're simplifying the way that we're handling software installation and updates. For those of you who are maybe newer-ish to software development, there was a time where there were no package managers and you had to physically go into every single website or whatever it was, of whatever it was that you wanted to install and do it manually. So the fact that now we have this is amazing. Since you've been there, since you've been working so you're a core maintainer, right? Like that's your
Yes.
day to day. Beautiful.
So, I am a principal software engineer here at Chocolatey, and my day-to-day job is working on all the chocolate products. So I have an overview across the entire chocolate ecosystem and trying to keep it all in sync and working together. It's my core job.
Amazing. So how does your you personally as a core maintainer handle like user feedback, and like how are you incorporating things on what like the chocolate roadmap is going to be, and then also anything that's been recently updated or that is exciting to you that you would like to share? I love to for us to take a time now that we all understand what Chocolatey is. Thank you for explaining.
I mean, so as a general comment, I mean, we love feedback at Chocolatey. The one thing that I will say is that, as maybe some of your other guests have said, I mean, open source is hard sometimes. So, I mean, we don't always get immediate feedback, but we do we look at all the issues. Myself and my colleague, we go through the issues on a semi-regular basis and try and keep on top of them. But I'm not going to say that we get to everything. But yeah, we use GitHub primarily for all of our open source issues. So if there is something wrong with Chocolatey, we encourage people to create an issue. But what we do say is that if your question, if the thing that you're asking about is maybe more of a question or a discussion, we do have discussions enabled on the Chocolatey GitHub repository. And we also have a Discord server that we encourage people to reach out in the kind of the first instance. So if someone's got an idea or a problem, they can maybe ask the question there first, and then we'll create an issue, or we'll ask them to create an issue off the back of it. Because no one likes having their issue closed or maybe just kind of dismissed because it's maybe something that we're already thinking about, or we've maybe got a duplicate issue. So we do encourage people to reach out via discussions first, or like I say, the Discord server. And yeah, we as a team are pretty much all over all the socials. So we get questions on Twitter, we get questions on Blue Sky, on Reddit. And like I say, I'm not going to say that's a full-time job, but there is a lot of conversations that happen in various different places. But we do try and consolidate it down into issues that we triage in GitHub, and then eventually we'll pull those through via PRs into the repository, and then obviously push them out as a release. So we have had a fairly big release recently of Chocolatey. That was our 2.x release. So if I go over here, actually I can't see what I'm pointing at. So our reasonably big release is the 2.x release of Chocolatey. So if you wanted to, you could read through all of the release notes, because we maintain all the releases in GitHub. But in the 2.x release, which I scroll down to it, the 2.x release saw us switch from, this might surprise some of your viewers or listeners, Chocolatey as a product in 1.x still compiled against and ran on .NET Framework 4.0. Now, that's not the new .NET with a 4. That's the original full-fat .NET Framework for 4.0. The reason that we did that is we as a company are very rigorous about backwards compatibility. So we want products to still run on those servers that you've got are still running Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2012, Windows 7. So Chocolatey as a product has always been backwards compatible back to .NET Framework 4.0. But with the 2.0 release, we decided enough is enough. We're going to go to the next one. So we made a big jump for us from .NET Framework 4.0 to .NET Framework 4.8. So that was a big change architecturally, from a build perspective. Lots of changes had to happen in there. The other big one that's maybe getting a little bit too technical, or it's hard to describe, but Chocolatey as a product used what's referred to as the NuGet API version 2, and there was a big jump to a NuGet API version of version 3. So Chocolatey as a product now supports both V2 and V3. So there was lots of work in there. But what I'm really thrilled to say about that one is that the uplift from NuGet V2 to NuGet V3 was pretty much all done. All the core work, all the building blocks of it was done by a community contributor. So we had an amazing contribution from a member called The Cake is a Lie. That's his handle on GitHub. Now, there was work that we had to do bringing in that PR, because we had to make sure that all of our tests ran. We had to create new tests. We had to do lots of stuff behind the scenes to make everything work. But the lion's share of all of that work came from a community contributor who is very interested in Chocolatey and Chocolatey's development. And if you look in our repository, he has something like 16 open PRs to get new functionality into Chocolatey. So we're lining those up to go out in a future release. I'm personally calling it the internally code name. It's the Cake is a Lie release, because it's literally he's looked at some of the backlog issues that we have, and he's taken it on himself to say, I want this, I want this, I want this. And we've had conversations with him in various ways to talk through what he's doing, how he's doing it, and whether we can actually pull it in. So no, there's lots of work coming down the pipe in terms of changes to Chocolatey CLI. But obviously, there's the back end work that has to happen to make changes to the commercial side of things as well. So we split our time between both the open source and the commercial elements as well. But yeah, the big release for us was Chocolatey 2.0, and then as per you can then see there was quite quickly there was some bugs identified, and we went through a series of releases. What we found was that it's the age-old problem that all of the testing that we did didn't capture those edge cases that as soon as it hits the open source community, as soon as people start using it, they find all these, I'm not going to call them weird ways, they find all the things that we didn't think about when we were doing the testing. So there was quite a few iterations of subsequent releases to immediately fix the issues that were brought up as part of that release. So it was an interesting 6-month period or so, but we got there. We're now happy with where the 2.x release is and where the functionality is.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. And listen, shout out to y'all. Like, .NET 4.0 was like 2009, 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, the commitment to supporting backwards compatibility is definitely there. That's awesome. I appreciate
so where
that.
we are now, now because we do support the last major version, I can't say we've got rid of it, because we still support the 1.x branch of Chocolatey as well as the 2.x. So now we've got .NET 4.0 builds and infrastructure and .NET 4.8 builds and infrastructure. But looking from a roadmap perspective, we definitely have, I still refer to it as .NET Core. I know it's meant to be .NET now, but .NET Core is definitely on the roadmap at some point. It brings its own challenges for us because, well, reasons. There's no point in going into them at the minute. But yeah, .NET, the new .NET is definitely on the roadmap for Chocolatey as well, because that opens up the potential for taking advantage of the newer functionality that's being offered in .NET. So we're looking forward to doing it, but it will be a challenge as well at the same time.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing a bit of where the roadmap is where you're headed. So before we get into how people can contribute, because I think I've seen a couple of folks in the audience who are already using and would like to go ahead and set up a path for contribution. Let me take a look and see if there are any other questions that maybe you can help us with. Oh, could we get a link to the Discord server, please? I have a link to the community where you have all your announcements, which I just share on the chat. But if we could, if it's an open invite for Discord.
It is. So I see Corey in the chat room. He's one of my work colleagues. So Corey, if you can
lovely.
if you can put a link in the chat to the Discord server, that'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know what?
Caro?
Go ahead. No, I was just going to quote Corey, actually.
Okay. There is on our homepage as well. So if you go to all of our social links are on the homepage as well. If you scroll down at the bottom. So all of the Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, and then one of them is the Discord one as well. I can't see it for looking, but one of them will be, yes.
Okay, perfect. But Corey, like if you're absolute gem and can drop the link, I can go ahead and share it with everyone too. And I wanted to share this quote for the folks that during that 6-month period, like we gotta be patient with our open source maintainers. I love this. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, or no release survives first contact with the enemy. And that's so true though. There's gonna be niche cases that there's no way for you all to take into consideration when you're doing your testing. But that's the whole point of doing things like this and talking to the community. You do something with the community. It's like a coffee break or something every month. Is that a good place for people who want to contribute to come in and join and get a feel for what it's like to work with the team?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we do a fairly regular community coffee break, as you say. But we also do a product live stream as well. So we kind of what is new and what is coming up. We'll show that in one of them, and then the community coffee break. The last few ones have been us interviewing other people in the community. So we've got a kind of fairly standard interview format. So we'll reach out to one of the community maintainers, community contributors, and we'll bring them on. We'll talk to them about how they got into Chocolatey, what they do with Chocolatey, etc. I'm fairly sure the format of that is mixing up a little bit this year because we are pivoting slightly in how we want to do things. But yeah, in the social links there is a link to the YouTube channel as well as the Twitch channel. So similar to this, we stream to both at the same time. So everyone would be more than welcome to come and jump in there and to find out and ask questions and see how they can get involved. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. I've dropped the link to the community coffee break. I think you have one coming up next month. So folks, if you're interested in contributing or just want to meet the core team, meet Gary, because I think you're the leader of those, go ahead and join those calls. All right. We did have another question from the audience, and I have to apologize. I'm struggling with my screen at the moment. So it's from Victor. All right. Let's see. Is there any Choco scripts, like a package.json where I can install all packages needed with a command like choco install? I'm a little bit confused but Chocolatey uses its own scripting and configuration, right? Like, so how does that work?
So there's a couple of aspects to that. So when people talk about Chocolatey scripts, they might be talking about the actual PowerShell scripts within the package that actually does the download, it actually does the installation, and it actually does all the parts that need to be done. What I think Victor is referring to is that if you, like I said earlier, if I go up to here and I do Choco list, then I've got 106 packages installed. So I went through and I did Choco install this, I did Choco install that. But if you get to the point where you've got everything configured and you know what packages you want to have, then you might want to create what Victor's referring to there as a package.json file that says these are all the packages that I have installed. And then if you if you create a new machine or you move to a different machine, you might want to take all those packages with you to perform that installation again. So what Chocolatey allows you to do, there is a Chocolatey export command. So you can export all of those files. Actually, I think I've got VS Code open already. You can export all of those installed packages into a packages.config file. So this then generates an XML file that's in a specific format that Chocolatey understands. So you can then take that packages.config file onto another machine. So if you then went to another machine and then did Choco install, I can't type install. I'm not going to do this now because this would break. but you could then say choco install packages.config, and then Chocolatey will then just go through every single one of those 106 packages and install them all on your machine. So it's a really interesting way to essentially take a snapshot of your machine, throw it away, reinstall all your packages, and you're back to where you were without having to do anything else. It's one command to export, and it's one command to get them all installed again. So I think that's what
Beautiful.
Victor was referring to. So hopefully that answers the question.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks, Victor, for the question. I hope this answers, and that's very practical. I love that. We have a couple of other questions on the audience. Let me take a quick look here. Great. Yeah, more questions for the Discord. Okay. Well, let me remove your screen for now.
Sure.
And then here we are. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Gary. So going back to a little bit about all the work that you've done, Chocolatey, since you started, I'm sure that when you joined, even though you have already been a contributor, it's a bit of a transition going from being an external contributor to being the principal engineer in the team. Just, is there any particular technical challenge that you remember that were interesting to you that you like to share? Or anything in particular that you were like, just for folks who are thinking about taking maintainership as a full-time gig?
I mean, so from a purely practical point of view, the biggest challenge for me in transitioning into this role was I went from being in a full-time office job where I had colleagues, I had meetings, I had face-to-faces, and I went to, this is my room, this is me by myself, talking into the ether like this when I was on call. So that was an interesting challenge. But so I would say the first 6 months was quite hard. But once I got into the routine, I really like it now. I mean, I don't think I would go back to an office job ever again, simply because the benefits that come with working remotely. I can be with my kids more. I can be involved when school drop-offs, pickups, all that sort of stuff. So purely from a practical point of view, that was the biggest challenge. From transitioning into, it was an interesting transition because I was, at the time, before I started working full-time for Chocolatey, I was doing a lot of open source work with Chocolatey. So that meant me, in my spare time, in my evenings, contributing to Chocolatey. And then I had to then explain to my wife and my children that now Daddy's now doing that full time over here. So the stuff that he was doing as a hobby in his spare time, that's now what he gets to do as a full time job. So explaining that to them was interesting, and for me it was as well, because I went from one side of the fence to the other. I went from making contributions and waiting for feedback to being the one that was looking at the contributions and providing the feedback. So it was interesting to make that conversion, to then understand that, okay, now I'm the one that needs to own this code and has to continue maintenance of that code once it gets pulled in. So that's when you introduce the challenges of terms of, well, we need to make sure that we've got tests for this. We need to know that we've got a documentation for it. We need to know what the release process for all of these things are. So that was one of the biggest things when I started, was we went from everything being under Rob Reynolds, like I say, the original creator. He knew how to do everything and he was able to do everything. But then he had to be able to show me how to do everything and be able to do everything. So it wasn't just his computer that was able to do the work. So a big part of that was me sitting next to Rob, taking notes about what he's doing, how he's doing it, and making that into a documented release process, introducing continuous integration, continuous deliverable, all of those things has kind of been born from it no longer being a one-man open source project into an actual, this is a business, we're going to bring people on and we're going to have more developers on the team. So it was building that up and being there from the outset and being involved in the development of that's been really interesting. Not going to lie, it's been challenging. I mean, there have been harsh words spoken, but for the most part, it's been a really good and interesting challenge to get involved in, and it's been good fun.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I always find that a little bit fascinating how you go from being like an outsider to the project to actually being literally the
Yeah.
person that can make or break. Did you remember how many packages there were when you joined before?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I mean, it's one of these things that has steadily grown up. It's got higher. I mean, back when I was there, that was 2013. So we were at the point we were at we were at the late hundreds, thousands, the early thousands, and now we've crept up over the 10,000 mark, and we've in terms of total package downloads from the community repository, that's one that we are tracking because we're honing in on 3 billion downloads of packages from the community repository.
Would it be?
With a
Wow.
B, yeah. So we did a blog post when the first billion happened because it was like, oh my, this is amazing, it's a billion, and then not long after that, it was the 2 billion, and quicker again, the 3 billions come around. So it's going up in terms of the package download, which is great to see. It's also intimidating because, like I say, lots of people using it, lots of people have expectations, but then that's where the community contributions and the help comes into it. So we look forward to people, new people coming along, finding out the edge cases, finding out what they want to happen differently. So those conversations are always interesting to have. It's always, from my point of view, it's like, oh, I want to work on this now because this is a great idea. But then that's when reality sets in and you have to prioritize and understand the implications of bringing it in and lots of conversations. So it's a challenging one because it's like, oh, it's nice and shiny, let's go and do that thing over there. But
Right.
we don't always get to do that. So
I mean, if I had an ounce of practicality for every ounce of excitement I have about something new, I would be sitting in a different place.
That's it.
I love that. I want to take through like the contributor sort of life cycle and what that looks like. But before, I did want to ask for the way that you accept packages. I guess, is there any kind of moderation process? Like, there's a quality and security standard. I'm assuming it's getting applied to every
There
package
is.
that's uploaded. Is that an automated process, or how does that review happen?
It's about both. So let's
Mhm.
say you wanted to contribute a package to Chocolatey. You would go our documentation, you'd read the documentation, you create the package, and then you would, what we say, you push the package to the community repository. At that
Mhm.
point, your package goes into our queue, and then we have automated systems that then take that package apart, literally blow it apart, look at what scripts that you've written, make sure that you're not trying to do something nefarious. So we have automated sanity checks of the PowerShell scripts themselves. Then we do an automated installation. We spin up a VM. We do an automated installation of that package to make sure that it works. And by works, I mean the installation completes successfully. We then take that package apart and we send all the files associated with it up to VirusTotal, where we do virus scanning of all of those things. And if your package gets through all of those things, it then goes to a human moderator. So we've got a team of human moderators that look at that package moderation queue and then get into the fine details, like what exactly is this package doing? Does it have the right icon? Are they allowed to create a new one? Is this a duplicate package? So we have human moderation that takes care of all of that. And then if everything checks out, that package will get approved, and then it's available to be installed by anyone from the community repository. We then have the concept of a trusted package. So if you then do the same package again for a certain number of times and there's no follow-up issues with your package, then we would convert it to a trusted package where it only goes through the automated checks and it no longer has the human moderation. So it speeds up the moderation slightly because you don't have the human moderator to get involved, but you've still got all the automated checks to get in. Because the last thing that we want to happen is for a virus infested executable to end up on community repository. So yeah, we have fairly rigorous checks that go through, and it would be obviously if there was something wrong with the package, that package wouldn't be allowed on the repository and it wouldn't get approved. It would ultimately be rejected. So yeah,
That is
lots
awesome.
of things in the background happening to make all of that infrastructure work as well. Yeah.
All right, that's wonderful. So you know that the Chocolatey team has security, and the security of the packages that are being uploaded, like, it's top of mind. And I appreciate you sharing that there is more than one measure in place to make sure that, yeah, nothing nefarious gets up there. So that's so cool. All right, let me see one last question from Almin Ajari. I'm new to this. I love to know the benefits of using Choco. What makes it? Oh, I think what makes it better than using NPM? Well, Chocolatey is a package manager for Windows, and then NPM is for JavaScript, and that might be, yeah. There you go.
Essentially,
So that's it.
So I mean, the term package manager is kind of a loaded term. So
right.
So the NPM is the node package manager that helps with the installation and maintenance of specifically node packages for your JavaScript development. So they work together, to be honest. I mean, you can use, this is where Inception comes in. So you can use Chocolatey to install Node, which installs the Node package manager, and then you use the Node package manager for doing your JavaScript development. So you can use one to install the other. So there's a chain that goes on there. But yeah, it's some people who are new to this, they might be familiar with Homebrew on Mac or apt-get or Yum on Linux. So Windows, on Windows, Chocolatey is a package manager for Windows that aims to do the same sort of role as Homebrew or apt-get or Yum.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the extra detail. All right, so I'm all in the Chocolatey ecosystem. How can I contribute? Do I go look for first issues? Like, what would be the best starting point for me?
Absolutely. So we do subscribe to the Good First Issue label on GitHub. So if you did want to jump in, there will be some labels that are marked there. What I would say to folks is if they are interested in helping out, and we definitely want people to help out, the last thing that I want to have to do is to say no. So what I don't want folks to do is run off and do a big scope of work and do a PR and do all these things without first having a conversation with someone on the team. So that conversation probably best starts off in the Discord server or via a discussion. So we can give you pointers on how to do the work that we ultimately want, because that way we can guide you down the path. So I'm more than happy to help someone do that, because I would much prefer that than then having to say, really happy that you tried to contribute, but this is not what we wanted, and you've gone off in a completely different direction. So no, we have labels there. So tends to be the case that if someone is interested in picking up an issue, leave a comment and say, I'm interested in picking this issue up. Then we can start a conversation and go off to, like, say, Discord or off to a discussion. And then if it gets to the point that you are able to pick that up, we'll typically assign it to you. And then from there, a PR, and then the standard PR review and feedback cycle that happens. So no, absolutely. And so that's contributing into Chocolatey, the product. But absolutely, if you wanted to contribute to the Chocolatey community, the wider Chocolatey community, in terms of becoming a package maintainer, then under the Chocolatey community GitHub organization, there's a repository in there for requests for package maintenance. So there's folks that have identified that there are packages missing on the community repository. So you can jump in there and pick up one of those issues and create a package and push to the community repository, and then it will go through that moderation process that we spoke about. So there's lots of ways that folks can get involved and help out with the Chocolatey community and the Chocolatey product as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So folks, make sure you have a conversation. Sounds like there's plenty of places to reach you between the Discord and the discussions. So before you start working on that thousands and thousands of lines of code PR, talk to the team.
Exactly.
Make sure that you're doing things the way that works for the project. That's awesome. I forgot to ask you about Cake. Can we talk about Cake real quick?
Sure. So Cake is a build orchestration tool. So Cake is it was another project that I worked at. I was looking at this. I was on the sidelines looking at Cake, thinking, "Oh, this is pretty cool. Am I going to get involved? Am I not going to get involved?" And then I jumped in. So I could. I don't think we've got time to show you. But effectively, what Cake does is it helps orchestrate the build that you want to do. So what I mean by that is, build is an overloaded term, but a build might be the compile of the project. It might be the restoring of NuGet packages. It might be the creation of NuGet packages. It might be publishing to GitHub. It might be doing all these things. And the way that you construct that build, and for what we do, is we write a cake script, and we create all the tasks, and then we layer those tasks on top of each other. So that the overall build process, rather than being just this one big script that no one can really understand, it gets broken down into individual tasks, and they're managed by cake. So if you go and look at the Chocolatey repository, you'll see that we've got a recipe.cake file, because it's called cake. Why would you not have a recipe for it? So we've got a recipe.cake file and that's how we build Chocolatey. So I tend to, once I get involved in projects, I tend to use all those projects. So Chocolatey as a product is built with cake, and it uses Git Release Manager to do stuff. So I combine all of my open source projects into the overall build that I'm trying to achieve.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I shared the repository for cake as well. So let's go out there and drop us in an orchestration. Then that might be your jam. Go in there and try and contribute there. And then one final question, and time has flown, and I'm sorry, we're already 5 minutes past the time that I asked for you. There was a question about, let's see. Well, do you use the good first issue tag, or is there some other term? Yeah, it's thank you, Koala Pandeluch. It is the good first issue in the
or
repo.
up for grabs. It's either good first issue
or
up for grabs, or it's one of the standard ones. Yeah, you can definitely find
Okay, beautiful. And then make sure that you talk to the contributors
that would be,
and reach out to them.
Yeah.
It's probably the best. I'm sorry to the maintainers, that's the best way to go. Then Team had a question about what do you think about the future compared to Winged? I guess different use cases, different features. I don't know if there's anything that you like to add.
So for those that don't know, so Winget is a software application manager for Windows that is made by Microsoft. So there's definitely some similarities between the two. There's plenty of space for both of us, I would like to say. So they do things in a completely different way. So while they both result in the installation of an application on your machine, the way that we go about doing things is slightly different. So Chocolatey is not just an application installer. With a Chocolatey package, you can install zip files, you can install configuration, you can run any PowerShell script that you want to configure your machine, and it's all done in a standard packaging format. Whereas Winget is more geared towards, I have an application installer and I'm going to install that for you. My colleague, Paul Broadwith, I don't have a link to it, and I don't know if Corey's still around. My colleague, Paul Broadwith, recently did a talk where he did a direct comparison between Winget and Chocolatey at the PowerShell, the EU PowerShell conference. So I can, if Corey's not around, he can't dig that up. I can send you a link to that. You have?
Yeah, I got it.
So that was a really good talk. One of the core maintainers of the Winget project was in the room while Paul was doing that talk. So they'd been having discussions before the talk. So there's no animosity, there's no criticism between the two. They're both tools that you can use, and I think we feel that there's more than enough space in both of these for both of us. And like I say, from the commercial point of view, it's still paying my mortgage, so I'm happy, and I'm happy to be working on it. So that's if you are interested, that's the link to go and find all the information about the differences between the two and how they sit side by side.
There you go. So if you are wondering, then you can go ahead and check out that YouTube. It looks like the full talk is there, and that's going to some of the more deeper technical specifications of each, and so this will definitely answer that more in depth. But
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. It is so nice to have you here today, Gary. Thank you so much. Is there anything coming up besides the upcoming coffee break that you'd like to share with us before we close out?
So those are the main ones. So yeah, on the chocolatey.org website, there is an event section, so that we post everything to there, and all of our socials, we post all of the upcoming events to the socials when they're coming up. We do have the other thing that we do as a team. We have what we refer to as a community day. So we do a quarterly community day within the team. So that's a day when we just get given, we can work on any projects that we're interested in. So
Nice.
that is coming up soon. So what we tend to do is we tend to have an entire day just working on Chocolatey community specific stuff, but we're changing that so that we as a team can go off and contribute to other parts of the other communities as well. So I'm looking forward to being able to take a day and get some of my own to-do list items knocked off. So that is coming up in February. So that's another thing that we do as a team. But we also encourage folks at the same time to get involved, especially when it's the community, the Chocolatey Community Day. We can then sit down with contributors and help them with their work that they're doing on Chocolatey. So that's something we like to do as well, just to give back to the community.
If that's not the ethos of open source there, the open source company and project that are also giving out to other open source project, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Gary. It's amazing to have had a chance to talk to you. Big fan. For those of you who've not followed Gary on social, make sure you should follow him in Twitter. Super easy handle, twitter.com/GEP13. Gary's also a GitHub star, so thank you for continuing to just put out amazing content and helping us all get better at our jobs. So glad we gave some love to our Windows user today with you, and I appreciate that. When I saw the issue, it actually made me think about how we've not done that before. Need to talk to some .NET folks and just get some other stuff going here. So I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's joined today. Gary, I appreciate you. We'll let you go so you can go spend the rest of the evening with your family. Sorry we went a bit later. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Don't forget to follow Gary on social. GEP13 is his handle everywhere. And if you're interested in being a part of the Chocolatey community, go ahead and click on the links that we provided. Join there. I'm going to go find the Discord server and I'll plug it back on the chat in a bit. But they have a forum and they also have discussions enabled. And it sounds like if you're ready to contribute now, that's ways to start a conversation with the contributors, maintainers. I hope this was educational, informative for you. As a non-Windows person, it was very informative for me. For those of you who are more interested in more technical levels of what the difference are between this and other tools, check out that talk that we share on the chat comments. And go ahead and give a start to the Chocolatey folks. And if you have a need for a more enterprise-grade solution, then remember they also have that. So check it out. Appreciate you all for being here today, this Open Source Friday. We'll see you next time.